Welcome to MLK Audiobooks, where history, inspiration, and personal triumph converge, offering listeners a journey into the life and legacy of one of the most influential leaders of the 20th century. Today, we present the autobiography of Martin Luther King Jr., an intimate and powerful exploration of the life, struggles, victories, and reflections of a man whose vision for justice, equality, and nonviolent resistance transformed not only the United States but the world. This audiobook is not merely a historical account. It is a journey through the experiences, moral convictions, and personal reflections that shaped Dr. King's identity, philosophy, and unwavering commitment to social justice. Over the course of this narrative, you will gain insight into the personal challenges, triumphs, and pivotal moments that forged a leader, while also learning timeless lessons about courage, leadership, resilience, and moral clarity. The life of Martin Luther King Jr. illustrates how personal conviction, disciplined action, and principled leadership can confront injustice, inspire generations, and create lasting societal impact. By following this narrative, listeners are invited to reflect on the values, choices, and sacrifices that underpin meaningful change, drawing inspiration for both personal development and social engagement. If this audiobook moves you, encourages reflection, or strengthens your sense of purpose, follow MLK Audiobooks, subscribe for more transformative stories, leave a review to support our mission, and share this audiobook with someone seeking insight into leadership, courage, and moral strength. Now, prepare to journey into the life, vision, and legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and discover the lessons embedded in a life devoted to justice, equality, and unwavering hope. This audiobook is divided into 8 chapters, each designed to guide you through the stages, experiences, and reflections of Martin Luther King Jr. from his early life and personal development to his leadership, moral philosophy, and lasting impact. As we begin with the first chapter, remember that this is not only the story of a public figure, but also the intimate journey of a man who cultivated courage, resilience, and vision through both personal and societal challenges. Chapter 1. Early Life and Foundations, Family, Faith, and Formative Experiences. In this chapter, titled Early Life and Foundations, Family, Faith, and Formative Experiences, we explore the formative years of Martin Luther King Jr., examining the influences of family, faith, and community on his developing character, while also highlighting the lessons learned and why understanding these early experiences is essential for grasping the principles, resilience, and leadership that defined his life. Born into a household where faith, moral integrity, and a commitment to education were paramount, King's early years were shaped profoundly by the values instilled by his parents, who emphasized the importance of self-respect, social responsibility, and the pursuit of knowledge as tools for personal empowerment and societal contribution. The church was a central pillar of his upbringing, offering not only spiritual guidance but also a community framework that reinforced ideals of compassion, justice, and leadership, providing a fertile environment for cultivating the moral convictions that would later underpin his activism. King's childhood experiences with segregation, systemic discrimination, and social inequality exposed him early to the harsh realities of racial injustice, teaching him both the urgency of action and the necessity of resilience, courage, and principled resistance. Education played a transformative role in shaping his worldview, as teachers, mentors, and access to literature broadened his intellectual horizons, instilled a sense of curiosity, and reinforced the power of knowledge as a catalyst for personal and societal change. Family stories, historical narratives, and personal observation contributed to a nuanced understanding of leadership, sacrifice, and community responsibility, showing King the importance of moral authority, empathy, and strategic action in addressing societal challenges. One of the most significant lessons from this period is that character is formed in the intersection of environment, experience, and guidance, and that early exposure to values such as integrity, discipline, and service provides the foundation for principled leadership. Another critical insight lies in the cultivation of empathy, because witnessing and experiencing the struggles of others from an early age nurtures the capacity to act not only for oneself but for the broader community, reinforcing the idea that true leadership serves a purpose greater than personal gain. The importance of this chapter lies in demonstrating that the foundations of resilience, moral clarity, and vision are built long before public recognition, and that the lessons learned in childhood, through family, faith, and early challenges, shape both character and the ability to influence society meaningfully. By reflecting on King's early life, listeners gain insight into the interplay between personal upbringing, community values, and social awareness, understanding how foundation experiences cultivate the qualities necessary for courageous, transformative leadership. As you internalize these reflections, you begin to see that the principles of integrity, empathy, and resilience are not abstract ideals but cultivated traits, nurtured through environment, education, and early exposure to both opportunity and adversity, preparing the foundation for a life of purpose, courage, and moral leadership. Chapter 2. Adolescence and Moral Awakening. Shaping Conviction and Leadership. In this chapter, titled Adolescence and Moral Awakening, Shaping Conviction and Leadership, we explore Martin Luther King Jr.'s formative teenage years, examining how early exposure to moral challenges, social injustice, and educational opportunities shaped his emerging convictions, sense of responsibility, and the foundations of his leadership, while highlighting the lessons of courage, reflection, and ethical clarity gained during this period. Adolescence is a pivotal time when values, beliefs, and personal philosophy begin to crystallize. And for King, it was a period of heightened awareness of racial injustice, inequality, and the moral imperatives that would later define his public life. Through encounters with segregation, discriminatory practices, and the stories of those who suffered under systemic oppression, King developed an acute sensitivity to the impact of injustice on human dignity, instilling in him both empathy and the urgency to act with purpose and integrity. Education continued to play a central role, as literature, historical examples of resistance, and mentorship from teachers and community leaders exposed him to moral philosophy, ethical reasoning, and the power of nonviolent advocacy as a tool for social change. Religious instruction and engagement in church activities reinforced the integration of faith and ethics, demonstrating that moral conviction combined with disciplined action can influence society and inspire collective effort toward justice. One of the most significant lessons of this period is that early exposure to moral dilemmas and the guidance of trusted mentors cultivates the courage to question injustice, speak truth, and act according to principles rather than convenience or conformity. Another key insight lies in the recognition that leadership is both a personal and social responsibility, requiring not only vision and conviction but also the capacity to inspire, educate, and guide others in pursuit of a just cause. King's adolescence also revealed the importance of self-discipline, critical thinking, and reflection, showing that intellectual development and moral clarity go hand in hand, enabling informed, ethical decisions in complex social environments. The importance of this chapter lies in illustrating that the moral and intellectual foundations of leadership are cultivated through experience, education, and reflection, and that the lessons learned in youth resonate throughout a lifetime of public engagement and advocacy. By internalizing these lessons, listeners gain insight into the intersection of conscience, education, and social awareness, understanding how formative experiences prepare an individual to navigate challenges with courage, clarity, and ethical purpose. As you reflect on King's adolescence, you begin to appreciate that character, conviction, and leadership are nurtured through exposure to injustice, mentorship, and disciplined moral reasoning, creating the foundation for principled action in adulthood. Ultimately, mastering the lessons of adolescence and moral awakening equips an individual to approach life's challenges with courage, clarity, and a sense of responsibility, setting the stage for the transformative leadership and vision explored in the chapters to come. Chapter 3, Higher Education and Emerging Leadership, Solidifying Vision and Purpose. In this chapter, titled Higher Education and Emerging Leadership, Solidifying Vision and Purpose, we explore Martin Luther King Jr.'s college and seminary years, examining how academic study, intellectual engagement, and early leadership opportunities shaped his philosophy, moral reasoning, and commitment to nonviolent advocacy, while highlighting the lessons that prepared him for a life dedicated to justice, equality, and principled leadership. Higher education exposed King to a broader world of ideas, philosophies, and historical context, deepening his understanding of justice, human rights, and the power of organized ethical action, which became central to his personal mission and public leadership. Seminary study reinforced the integration of faith and action, teaching him that religious conviction is most powerful when applied to address societal injustice, and that moral principles must guide not only personal conduct but also collective efforts to promote equity and dignity. During these years, King took on leadership roles in student organizations, debate forums, and community initiatives, learning to inspire peers, organize campaigns, and communicate ideas effectively, cultivating skills that would later underpin his nationwide influence. Exposure to works on philosophy, nonviolent resistance, and social reform, including the writings of Gandhi, Thoreau, and other thinkers, shaped King's understanding of strategic, ethical activism, emphasizing the importance of principle, patience, and moral courage in effecting meaningful change. One of the most significant lessons of this period is that education is not only a personal enrichment but also a tool for empowerment, providing knowledge, perspective, and strategic insight necessary for leadership, advocacy, and effective problem-solving in complex social contexts. Another key insight lies in the importance of mentorship, collaboration, and guidance from experienced figures, as these relationships provided critical perspective, moral grounding, and practical strategies for translating philosophy into action and vision into tangible impact. King's experiences in higher education also reinforced the role of discipline, perseverance, and ethical consistency, showing that intellectual and moral preparation are inseparable from the capacity to lead effectively, influence society, and confront systemic injustice with integrity. The importance of this chapter lies in demonstrating that leadership emerges from the deliberate cultivation of knowledge, character, and practical skills, and that a foundation built on education and principled engagement equips an individual to navigate complex societal challenges with clarity and authority. By internalizing these lessons, listeners gain insight into the interplay between intellectual growth, moral reasoning, and leadership development. Understanding how deliberate preparation shapes the capacity to inspire, organize, and advocate for transformative change. As you reflect on King's higher education and early leadership, you begin to appreciate that vision, courage, and purpose are cultivated through study, mentorship, and disciplined action, preparing the individual to take on responsibility and influence for the greater good. Ultimately, mastering the lessons of higher education and emerging leadership equips a person to approach challenges with informed judgment, ethical conviction, and the skills necessary to turn vision into action, laying the foundation for the transformative work explored in subsequent chapters. Chapter 4, The Montgomery Bus Boycott, Early Activism and the Rise of National Leadership. In this chapter, titled The Montgomery Bus Boycott, Early Activism and the Rise of National Leadership, we explore Martin Luther King Jr.'s first major foray into public activism, examining how his leadership during the Montgomery bus boycott solidified his philosophy of nonviolent resistance, showcased his capacity to inspire collective action, of his national prominence in the civil rights movement. The Montgomery bus boycott emerged as a response to systemic injustice and racial discrimination in public transportation, and King's involvement exemplified the intersection of moral conviction, strategic leadership, and community mobilization, demonstrating the power of principled action in confronting entrenched societal inequities. King's role in organizing, coordinating, and leading the boycott highlighted his ability to articulate a vision, galvanize community support, and maintain commitment to nonviolent methods despite threats, intimidation, and social pressures, showcasing the effectiveness of ethical leadership under adversity. Strategic planning, collaboration with local leaders, and engagement with diverse community stakeholders allowed the boycott to sustain momentum over months, illustrating the importance of structure, communication, and resilience in achieving social change. One of the most significant lessons from the boycott is that meaningful activism requires both moral courage and practical strategy, as inspiring a movement demands vision, patience, and an understanding of the mechanisms through which change can be enacted. Another key insight lies in the power of collective action, because the success of the boycott depended not only on leadership but on the commitment, coordination, and solidarity of the broader community, reinforcing the idea that societal transformation is a shared responsibility. King's steadfast adherence to nonviolence, even in the face of hostility and danger, underscored the moral and strategic advantages of principled resistance, showing that justice achieved through ethical means carries legitimacy, sustains public support, and inspires others to act courageously. The importance of this chapter lies in demonstrating that national leadership and widespread influence are often forged through tangible engagement with injustice, and that early experiences of organizing and advocacy shape the strategies, character, and resolve required for broader societal impact. By reflecting on King's leadership during the Montgomery bus boycott, listeners gain insight into the interplay between moral conviction, practical action, and collective effort, understanding how principled leadership can catalyze transformative change and inspire a movement. As you internalize these lessons, you begin to appreciate that courage, strategy, and ethical consistency are essential components of impactful leadership, and that meaningful progress is achieved when vision is coupled with action and collaboration. Ultimately, mastering the lessons from this pivotal moment equips individuals with the understanding that leadership emerges through service, strategic planning, and unwavering commitment to justice, laying the foundation for the national and global influence explored in subsequent chapters. Chapter 5, Expanding the Movement, Advocacy, Nonviolence, and National Influence. In this chapter, titled Expanding the Movement, Advocacy, Nonviolence, and National Influence, we explore how Martin Luther King Jr. extended his leadership beyond Montgomery, using nonviolent principles, eloquent communication, and strategic organization to influence national policy, raise awareness of racial injustice, and inspire collective action across the United States. King's philosophy of nonviolence, informed by religious conviction and the teachings of Gandhi, became the cornerstone of his advocacy, demonstrating that moral authority combined with disciplined action could challenge systemic oppression without resorting to retaliation or violence. Through speeches, marches, and organizational leadership, King articulated a vision of equality, justice, and freedom, galvanizing communities, policymakers, and citizens nationwide to confront the pervasive injustices that permeated American society. Strategic campaigns, such as voter registration drives, sit-ins, and peaceful demonstrations, exemplified his ability to translate moral principles into practical tactics, ensuring that activism produced both visibility and tangible social change. One of the most significant lessons from this period is that communication is as important as conviction, because the ability to inspire, educate, and mobilize people through words amplifies the impact of leadership and builds momentum for transformative action. Another key insight lies in coalition building, as King recognized the necessity of engaging diverse communities, organizations, and allies to strengthen the movement, demonstrating that lasting change is rarely achieved in isolation. The importance of patience, resilience, and strategic thinking is evident throughout this stage, as King navigated opposition, threats, and setbacks with composure and clarity, reinforcing that leadership requires both moral courage and tactical foresight. King's work during this period also illustrates the power of symbolism, ceremony, and public presence, as carefully organized events and speeches conveyed the urgency and legitimacy of the movement, shaping national perception and galvanizing support. By reflecting on King's national advocacy, listeners gain insight into how disciplined principles, strategic action, and moral clarity combine to create enduring influence, showing that leadership is both a personal and collective endeavor. As you internalize these lessons, you begin to understand that social transformation requires not only courage and conviction, but also thoughtful planning, effective communication, and the ability to mobilize communities toward shared goals. Ultimately, mastering the principles of advocacy, nonviolence, and national leadership equips individuals to effect meaningful change, demonstrating that principled action, persistence, and vision are foundational to leaving a lasting impact on society. Chapter 6. The March on Washington, Inspiring a Nation and Shaping Conscience. In this chapter, titled The March on Washington, Inspiring a Nation and Shaping Conscience, we explore Martin Luther King Jr.'s pivotal role in the 1963 March on Washington for Jobs and Freedom, examining how his leadership, eloquence, and moral vision galvanized a nation, advanced the civil rights movement, and created enduring inspiration for generations. The March on Washington represented the culmination of years of struggle, strategy, and organized activism, bringing together hundreds of thousands of people to demand justice, equality, and economic opportunity in a unified, peaceful demonstration of civic engagement. King's speech, famously known as "I Have a Dream," articulated a vision of a nation free from racial prejudice, inequality, and oppression, blending moral authority, emotional resonance, and rhetorical mastery to move listeners and motivate action. This event exemplified the power of public advocacy, as careful planning, coordination, and disciplined nonviolence demonstrated the potential for mass mobilization to influence political decision-making and public perception without resorting to conflict or aggression. One of the most significant lessons from this period is that clarity of vision and mastery of communication are essential to leadership, because inspiring collective action requires not only passion and conviction but the ability to convey ideals in a way that resonates broadly and deeply. Another key insight lies in courage under scrutiny, as King and his colleagues faced threats, skepticism, and opposition, yet remained steadfast, demonstrating that moral courage in the public sphere strengthens both personal credibility and movement legitimacy. The importance of collaboration is evident, as the March on Washington succeeded through the coordination of multiple civil rights organizations, leaders, and volunteers, illustrating that shared goals, teamwork, and unity amplify the impact of leadership and advocacy. King's leadership at this event also highlights the enduring power of hope and optimism, because envisioning a better future and expressing it eloquently motivates collective belief, resilience, and persistent pursuit of justice. By reflecting on King's role in the March on Washington, listeners gain insight into how strategic action, moral conviction, and inspiring communication can shift public consciousness, shape policy, and advance social reform in profound and lasting ways. As you internalize these lessons, you begin to understand that leadership involves both action and articulation, that vision must be communicated compellingly, and that societal transformation is achieved when ideals are made tangible through organized, ethical, and courageous effort. Ultimately, mastering the lessons from this historic event equips individuals to recognize the intersection of morality, strategy, and public engagement, demonstrating that principled leadership can inspire change, unify communities, and leave an enduring legacy of justice and equality. Chapter 7. Later Activism, Combating Poverty, War, and Enduring Challenges. In this chapter, titled Later Activism, Combating Poverty, War, and Enduring Challenges, we explore Martin Luther King Jr.'s later years of leadership, examining how he expanded his focus beyond civil rights to address poverty, economic inequality, and opposition to the Vietnam War, while highlighting the personal and societal challenges that tested his resilience, vision, and moral authority. King recognized that achieving racial equality was inseparable from broader social justice issues, and he advocated for economic empowerment, fair wages, and the eradication of poverty as essential components of a truly just society, linking civil rights to human dignity and opportunity for all. His outspoken opposition to the Vietnam War reflected the integration of moral and ethical principles into public advocacy, demonstrating that justice extends beyond national boundaries and that leaders must act in accordance with conscience, even in the face of criticism and political pressure. These efforts drew both support and opposition, as challenging entrenched systems of power and confronting multiple social injustices simultaneously created friction, heightened scrutiny, and personal risk. Yet King remained steadfast in his commitment to principle over popularity. One of the most significant lessons from this period is that leadership requires moral consistency, because advocating for justice in all forms, whether racial, economic, or global, reinforces credibility, inspires trust, and strengthens the transformative power of ethical action. Another key insight lies in courage under adversity, as King faced threats to his personal safety, criticism from political leaders, and disapproval from factions within his own movement, illustrating that principled action often entails personal sacrifice. The importance of persistence is evident, because despite setbacks, opposition, and exhaustion, King continued to advocate for systemic change, demonstrating that resilience and unwavering commitment to values are essential qualities of effective leadership. King's later activism also underscores the interconnection between moral vision and strategic action, as he combined public speaking, organizing, and grassroots advocacy to address complex societal issues with both clarity of purpose and practical effectiveness. By reflecting on King's later years, listeners gain insight into the breadth of leadership, understanding that true vision encompasses justice in all its forms and that transformative influence requires both courage and strategic perseverance in the face of immense challenges. As you internalize these lessons, you begin to see that leadership is an ongoing responsibility, demanding continuous advocacy, moral reflection, and dedication to principles, regardless of the personal cost or the complexity of societal obstacles. Ultimately, mastering the principles evident in King's later activism equips individuals to approach social and ethical challenges with courage, vision, and resilience, demonstrating that enduring impact arises from the integration of moral conviction, strategic action, and unyielding commitment to justice. Chapter 8: Legacy and Enduring Lessons, Leadership, Courage, and Social Change. In this chapter, titled Legacy and Enduring Lessons, Leadership, Courage, and Social Change, we explore the lasting impact of Martin Luther King Jr.'s life, examining how his philosophy, actions, and moral vision continue to inspire movements for justice, equality, and human dignity, while highlighting the lessons that listeners can apply to leadership, courage, and principled action in their own lives. King's legacy is rooted in the synthesis of moral conviction, strategic action, and unwavering courage, showing that transformative leadership requires a combination of vision, ethical consistency, and the ability to inspire others toward a common purpose. The principles of nonviolence and ethical resistance remain central, illustrating that change achieved through peaceful, principled action carries legitimacy, fosters widespread support, and creates enduring social impact that extends far beyond immediate victories. King's life demonstrates the importance of resilience, as he faced personal danger, public criticism, and immense societal obstacles, yet remained committed to his principles, proving that steadfastness in the pursuit of justice is a defining characteristic of influential leadership. One of the most significant lessons from his legacy is that courage is cultivated through conviction and practice, and that meaningful change often requires the willingness to challenge entrenched systems, confront inequity, and act in alignment with moral values despite risk or opposition. Another key insight lies in the power of communication, because King's speeches, writings, and public addresses exemplified how words, articulated with clarity, emotion, and ethical grounding, can mobilize communities, shift public perception, and inspire collective action. The importance of this chapter lies in demonstrating that leadership is both personal and societal, as King's ability to lead arose from the integration of self-discipline, moral clarity, empathy, and strategic vision, creating a template for ethical influence that endures across generations. By reflecting on King's life and achievements, listeners gain insight into how values-driven leadership, principled advocacy, and relentless dedication to justice can create lasting impact, offering lessons applicable to both personal development and societal engagement. As you internalize these lessons, you begin to see that true influence arises not from authority alone, but from the alignment of ethics, vision, and action, and that courage, integrity, and resilience are essential tools for effecting meaningful change in any context. Ultimately, mastering the principles exemplified by Martin Luther King Jr. equips individuals to approach challenges with clarity, lead with moral authority, and engage in social action that is both principled and effective, ensuring that his enduring lessons continue to guide future generations toward justice, equality, and human dignity. As we conclude the autobiography of Martin Luther King Jr., it becomes clear that leadership, courage, and moral vision are cultivated through experience, reflection, and unwavering commitment to principle. Over the course of these 8 chapters, you have explored King's early life, adolescence, higher education, formative leadership, the Montgomery bus boycott, national advocacy, later activism, and enduring legacy, gaining insight into how resilience, ethical conviction, and strategic action combine to effect profound social change. You have seen that true leadership integrates moral clarity with practical strategy, empathy with courage, and vision with disciplined action, demonstrating that impactful change requires both personal commitment and collective mobilization. The life of Martin Luther King Jr. teaches that adversity, opposition, and personal sacrifice are inevitable components of meaningful leadership, and that the ability to act with integrity, inspire others, and maintain hope is central to creating enduring transformation. By internalizing these lessons, listeners are equipped to cultivate resilience, ethical clarity, and purposeful action in their own lives, applying principles of justice, nonviolence, and visionary leadership in ways that influence both personal and societal outcomes. Ultimately, this audiobook demonstrates that King's life is not merely a historical account but a guide for how to lead, inspire, and create meaningful change grounded in courage, conviction, and moral purpose. If this audiobook has inspired you to reflect on your own leadership, embrace courage in the face of challenges, or act in service of justice and equality, take the next step by applying these lessons in your daily life and community. Follow Fremma Audiobooks for more transformative stories that cultivate leadership, resilience, and ethical decision-making. Subscribe to receive content that guides reflection, empowers action, and provides insight into the lives of individuals who have shaped history through principled courage. Leave a review to support the mission of sharing stories that inspire moral clarity, resilience, and social impact. Share this audiobook with someone who is seeking guidance, encouragement, or insight into the principles of effective leadership and purposeful action. Remember, true influence is created through integrity, empathy, and consistent effort aligned with values, and the lessons of Martin Luther King Jr. offer a timeless blueprint for impacting society positively. Begin today by reflecting on your own choices, embracing ethical action, and committing to lead with courage, conviction, and a vision that extends beyond yourself, continuing the legacy of justice and empowerment that King exemplified.